Good afternoon, everybody. I just thought I'd give you the update on what's happening in British Columbia with our tax situation. I'm going to share the screen with you. So basically, we've got a new budget in British Columbia. I'm sure everybody's aware. And of course, we're going to be paying more taxes. And how does that affect us? As if the cost of living is not high enough. So let's bring up the provincial government screen. I'm going to want to share this with you guys. And let's see what we're in for. And here we are. Notice to providers of professional services. So this is the second notice. The first notice was the budget of 2026. This has last been updated May 5th, 2026. And I thought, wow, we better take a look at this. We're already into July, August, September, October. You're going to be facing a 7% increase on the following services: your accounting services, your bookkeeping, your assurance services, meaning if you have to pay for an audit, architectural services. There's a big one: engineering and geoscience, security services, including private investigators, non-residential real estate, including trading service, rental property services, and strata management. Okay, and this is 7%. So here we go. You have to think about your budgets for the fall now. And does this 7% apply to you, and how it's going to impact your cash flows? Certainly your accounting services, if you're paying, a full-time bookkeeper, or, that's not an employee, that's a contractor, or if you're paying an auditor, that's a big hit, that's 7%. Okay, on any of these services. In an already stretched economy where the government seems to be spending a lot of money on foreign affairs and investments and assisting countries outside of our own, this British Columbia tax hits hard. And the reason I bring in the federal spending is because what that does, when the federal government chooses to send money to help fund wars and things like that, natural disasters in other countries, that reduces the payment transfers to the provinces, to all of the provinces. So then the provincial government is sort of in this position, and I'm not defending the provincial government at all, okay? That they have to secure these funds to keep the services going that we already have, just to maintain. Forget about having any enhanced services. So, that's about as much as I'll say about the political aspect, I guess, of taxation. And I'll leave it to you. I know I don't like paying any more taxes than I have to. And I just see this as a chartered professional accountant. This is going to hit hard with a lot of people, especially small business. It's going to hit hard with everyone because you've all of a sudden you've got this 7% increase in costs that wasn't there before. And I think that could slow down the economy. And I'll let the economists address that. So let's take a look at how they're going to do this. Now, the link, this is the link here. I'm going to throw it. I wonder, you guys can see it up there. It's just www.gov.bc.ca. All you have to do is put in your search engine, hey, what's happening with my provincial taxes, the budget, and when does it apply? So the PST is going to apply at 7%, effective October 1st, 2026. Now, if you are a small business and you are just opening up, you're going to need to plan for that. Do you have to register for it? Do you not? A nonprofit, services you're providing. And this is what you're going to pay if you're engaging these people. If you're not providing the service, say these companies now all of a sudden they have to include the PST. And if you're subscribing to those services, well, you're going to pay it, right? It's going to be on the bill. Big hit. Big hit. So just to complicate things further, guys, here's what they're doing now. So they tell you it's going to be on those 5 things. And then it says the PST on architectural, engineering, and geoscience services will apply to 30% of the purchase price of those services. Your bookkeeping just got way more complicated. So now invoicing has to be set up. Now, you know, do you have a till that's going to have to adjust for these services? Do you, depending on what you're doing, I suppose? I don't know how far this is reaching. You'll have to look, talk to your accountants, and, you know, plan for this. Do not all of a sudden on October 1st not have your PST number and be collecting PST, because you're going to be out of pocket if they audit you. The onus is going to be upon you. Okay, you need to register, and we'll get down to that. If you haven't, if you're any of these services, and you will need to start collecting that. You'll need to make sure your software is updated now. So you need to get your IT people in to address the software issues, and make sure you're just going to be sailing smooth by October 1st. And it says here, if you're not already registered to collect and remit PST, you will be required to register. And you can register up to 6 months before your first taxable sale. So yeah, they're trying to not have this bottleneck. They're recommending you register as soon as possible. And they give an example here. If you're not currently registered, but you're going to sell new taxable services on October 1st, you can register as of April 1st, 2026. Okay, and so we're halfway there. I would get registered. And you are required to register online. It's going to be through your e-service account on BC Tax. Everything's online now, as you know, and we'll take a look at that for you newbies, or for you that are still keeping your manual shoebox or your manual ledger that are writing, yes, or, you know, even if you're just keeping in it Excel, the key is to have some decent records. So there you go. You're going to have PST on accounting services. Now, let's just drill down into this and see what that means, because as we heard on the geoscience, engineering, architecture, it's going to be on 30% of that. Well, okay. A lot of adjustments going to be going on. I'm going to just see if we can. Okay, so here's the budget announcement. Effective October 1st for a list of professional services. This is the notice we're looking at. And then this is going to tell us what accounting services are. Okay, now look at this. What are accounting services? Accounting services provided in BC, provided outside of BC. Provided outside of BC that relate to BC and another jurisdiction. So here we go. We're getting very complicated. Tax is usually based on residency, where you are, the jurisdiction that you're in, and that's when it applies. Here's exemptions, registration requirements, reporting and paying PST, and transitional rules. Services purchased or provided before or after. I'm sure that we're going to get caught in some of those transitional rules if the jobs aren't quite complete. So accounting services include this: financial statements, notes to financial statements, journal entries, journals of accounts, payroll, budgets, invoices, bills, statements, tax returns, anything related to a tax or information return. So this is great. So we got to pay to do our taxes, and now we get taxed upon the services to do our taxes, which is mandatory by the government. It's, you know, I mean, it's just getting very expensive. And people, in my opinion, the tax system should be easy enough that the average person can file their taxes. It's gotten very complicated. So the fact that you're paying tax upon your services to prepare tax returns, to me, I have a trouble with that morally, I guess, my moral conscience. Applications for a tax credit, rebate, or refund, providing assurance services. So that would be auditing, reviewing accounting records if you're in that realm, that you require that, setting up internal controls, your bookkeeping, your billing, anything to do with, if an accountant touches it, the chances are your bookkeeper, you're going to pay. Compiling, preparing, and analyzing accounts payable and cost, financial forensic management, tax accounting, account reconciliation. Okay, providing advice, documents are provided documentation in relation to taxes, of course, tax legislation. So here we go now. All of a sudden there's a cost, because you need to understand if you have to register for your PST and collect it, and it'll be clear to some and not to others. Grants relating to property taxes, such as homeowner grants, if we provide advice on that. Wow, personal homeowners grants. We're not even in the business realm. Okay, now we're having to pay tax on personal service so that we understand our property taxes. Unbelievable. For PST purposes, accounting services do not include the following: a person, services provided by a person to to their employer in the course of their employment. So I guess if you want to plan ahead and get around paying this tax, the 7%, what you do is your bookkeeper becomes a part-time employee. You'll have to do a cost benefit analysis with your accountant to see which works the best. Because as we know, we've got to pay CPP and EI and the payroll benefits. You're probably looking at about 18% add-on for wages versus a 7% tax. That's just an estimate overall because employees have benefits and we have to pay the health tax. Now, if you're a status Indian, if you're on reserve, again, check with your accountant. Typically, these taxes should not apply if the work you're doing is on reserve for a business on reserve. Okay, be really careful there and make sure that you talk to your accountant. Make sure you talk to an accountant that is a specialist in First Nations taxation, because you do not want to go offside on this. This is going to be way too expensive. You also providing in-person accounting and training services. We don't have to pay tax on that. Woohoo! So if somebody is coming in to train and for educational purposes, provided remotely, that's good. Because a lot of times what accountants do, for example, and maybe other groups, is we do go in and we train the bookkeeper or the spouse, or we provide, that educational support. But make sure the contract is very, very clear, outlining the services, that it's educational and it's not. Be careful. Don't get offside on this. Now, accounting services provided in BC and this is where it's talking about, do they apply or don't they apply? So this is the jurisdiction in BC. So you're subject to PST unless a specific exemption applies. For example, do the services relate to a jurisdiction outside of BC? All right. And this is going to get really tricky. And I encourage you, if you're not comfortable reading this and translating and interpreting, you have a choice. You can email the help, and they're pretty good. I have to say, the province of BC, they take a little longer. They do get back to you. But if you want to be sure and have an objective third party, then yes, you would talk to your accountant or specialist in PST. And where does it constitute? Is it business in BC or is it out of BC? Are you bidding on contracts out of the province and things like that? All right. And the exemption, it talks about the exemption applies, like if the accounting service relates to real property, tangible personal property, any other property. So they always write these laws, and then all of a sudden we've got to look, okay, what is the real estate property tax rule? Well, it's different than this. You're not going to pay 7%, right? Is there a physical or legal presence in BC? So we're going to have to look at this. I've seen a lot of corporations have their head offices out of province and a person is residing in British Columbia. You better have a good talk with your accountant about this, because what's acceptable maybe for the federal government is not acceptable for the provincial government, and the overlapping of the tax legislation. Okay? It talks about the contemplation of a presence, activity, or transaction in BC. Okay, for example, accounting services related to a proposed business venture in BC. So I guess what I'm going to say here is you might also want to talk to your lawyer. Okay, because what I've seen in the past is where they incorporate businesses in, say, Alberta, and and then they move back to BC, but they still have the head office of their business in Alberta. Does that pass the tax test? Okay, and they're using an example here. For example, a person who resides in Alberta hires a BC accountant to provide monthly and year-end accounting for businesses located in Vancouver. The accounting services are taxable because the physical presence is in Vancouver. So a lot of this is going to, be mirrored. Where do you live? Where do you reside? Where is the physical presence of the business? Doesn't talk about the mind and management here. Okay, so accounting services outside of BC, for example, to a person who resides ordinarily or carries on business in BC are subject to PST unless an exemption applies. Again, so you have to go on this by case situation. All right. This is an educational video. This is what I do. I try to bring things to your attention to create that awareness. Um, and want, if nothing else, you want to write your email to the province of BC and saying, hey, look, this is what I do. Can you tell me? And they will give you a very good response. It's like asking for, an opinion. And they will refer you to the legislation and the bulletins. And you really want that information because there's so much overlapping information out there. Um, that's it for today, guys. I just thought we're already into July 20th. August, September, October's coming fast. You got 2 months and, roughly 11 days at the end of this month to get this going. And email me questions. I will not give you accounting or tax advice, but if you need a referral, I can walk you through CPA BC or somebody in your area. But this one, it's important to deal with a provincial sales tax expert. Okay, have a great day, everybody. Bye now. And that's a wrap. We are going to shut down. It takes me a while. I'm not a tech person, as you know.